guys are tuned into the Chappy and Bengals podcast. Today is Tuesday, November 26th. We're going to be recapping the slate of games we had on the weekend, Week 12 in the NFL. Safe to say, a couple bets went our way, a couple didn't go our way. We're going to review those for you guys, keep ourselves accountable here. Just a few. But it was a pretty eventful week considering we were talking about how the games, they weren't the greatest, didn't look all that competitive, but some of these turned out pretty good. We got some things we got to touch on here, and a few of them being Mr. Saquon Barkley. Has he officially entered the MVP discussion with that showing against the Rams? That was a hell of a game. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into that. But to start us off, Jeff, how'd you feel about Week 12, man?
Kind of one of those trappy weeks. We love it, though. I think that's when we start to see. Yeah, we were like, hey, what if Carolina wins this game? And almost. So that's definitely the tell of the tape on this week. I was kind of looking over the numbers and what we expected to see, and I think that's you just got to expect the unexpected in a lot of ways, because this was one of those weeks that they catch you off guard. But that's something I think that we did do all right in some of our props and some of our bets. But it was one of those kind of fade weeks where, especially with the different setups, and I know we had some injuries that played a part in this as well. But sometimes
the injuries.
Yeah, sometimes those teams that you don't expect to win, well, they come out and they show up, and it completely throws off your stats and your games and what you projected. So that's kind of the takeaways that I had. It was an interesting week of football. But yeah, no, I don't know what you think.
Sometimes that's the way she breaks. I think the funny thing was we were literally going through the slate of games. If you guys tuned into our preview show for Week 12, and as we were going through, we were picking our games, and I think we got to the point where we're a couple games in here and we're like, fuck, we're taking too many favorites here on the spreads. We're like, this just doesn't feel right. And then midway through the games, I'm texting Jeff. I'm like, yeah, trap week for sure. Where you get some of these teams like the Titans. Lions were the good lock there. Carolina coming back against the Chiefs. And then you had Dallas winning outright against Washington as well. So bit of a trap week. And this is where I think you get the separation of the teams that are they're kind of out of it. The pressure's not on them anymore, and they play a little bit more freely, and they just win these games against contending teams. So that's kind of how it played out for me. But let's dive into this slate of games here, and let's start off with let's actually start talking about that Kansas City Carolina game, because the Chiefs 10-1, but these motherfuckers never want to cover a spread right now. They're on a 5-game tear of not covering the spread. And I think if I look at the total here, they are now 4-8 against covering the spread. That's rough, man. And the Chiefs, once again, did not look the greatest against a Panthers team we can all collectively say is bottom 5 in the league for sure. So what are your thoughts, aside from us calling the fuck out of this game? What were your thoughts on the game, Jeff?
No, I think we had said, obviously, we thought it was going through the air, and that definitely transpired. The other side to this is, Bryce Young, playing a little free now.
Showing up a little bit now.
I think this is exactly what you just said. You start to get these guys that are, just kind of, it's not a big deal. We're just out here developing, and that's good. And that's what we've talked about. So I think that's the biggest thing that kind of came out of that game. And even Patrick Mahomes at the end of the game in the presser kind of said, hey, give us a good little run, right? And I think that's what you want to see. So if you're in Carolina and you've been obviously had a pretty tumultuous season here, not knowing what the fuck, you were going to get out of this, well, there's a little sunshine maybe on the horizon here. And then you got Brooks and what's going on. So who knows? We can kind of see maybe something coming, maybe something building, and I don't know. Definitely at the end a run for your money, but it could just be one of those exactly what we said. Trap week could mean fuck all, but hey.
This is the beauty of the NFL, right? there's no fucking rhyme or reason for how this shit happens. I mean,
to come and almost go fucking 3 points on them. That's
straight
ridiculous.
up win against the Chiefs. Chiefs are a top 3 defense in the league, and Bryce Young looked amazing out there. And he's thrown to like rookie wide receivers, a bunch of nobodies at this point. Chuba, I don't like. They drafted Jonathan Brooks. Chuba's having a hell of a season, and just amazing to watch that game. They look great. And funny, another stat to come out of this game, there's only been 3 quarterbacks this season to score 25 plus points against the Chiefs defense. It's been Burrow, it's been Allen, and now it's been Bryce Young. So pretty crazy, but it's that time of year. You're going to get some of those games. So pretty interesting. But let's kind of look at some of the plays that we had talked about. I think we nailed the Patrick Mahomes is going to try and force some plays here narrative because they were getting down to the red zone and they were throwing the ball. Patty wanted to get some touchdowns. So we were looking good on that. And again, fading the Kareem Hunt under there. He was in a great spot to succeed and under on the rush yards there. And we pretty much nailed that spot on. So
rush attempts.
Rush attempts. Yes. So pretty good showing for us with that game. And
aside from the props on both of our, or not the props, but the game that we had, we both took the spread itself. Not that kind of game. And we did actually even mention, that was the best part about listening to this was like, hey, we, they haven't done this all season. Well, it's going to be today. And then, it did not happen today.
It did not happen.
But also then like shit, like, this is those trap things. Like fucking Bryce Young comes out and shows up. What the fuck? So this is
that's why we love the sport, though, the parody in it. And funny enough, last 2 weeks, I've had parlays with the Chiefs on it. Last 2 weeks, Chiefs have lost. We spent all year talking about the Chiefs in that money line, and they just win. I decided to put some Chiefs on my parlay cards, and they're just not doing it. I didn't even take the Chiefs with the 11.5 line or 11 points that they had. I teasered them down to 7 points, and I still couldn't get it done.
Couldn't do it for you.
So appreciate that, Chiefs. Love it. This is why I stay away from Chiefs on my card, because they just never hit when you need them to. But pretty competitive game. So it was cool to see on Bryce's side of things. We were talking about the young quarterbacks. Nice to see him show out. Happy for him. It's been a hell of a ride this season for the Panthers fans. But you're up, man. You let me know what game we're going to next.
So I think we should kind of go right into this, probably the most entertaining outcome of the entire weekend, which was Washington-Dallas. Just how that game flipped on its end. Now, what a game. So we both took Washington on the spread at 10.5. I believe I said I love that choice. It was good. Did not come through for us. Absolute trap. Dallas kind of showed up, did what they need to do. That being said, on the prop side of things, you had Brian Robinson on the rushing yards. He got hurt. Oh my God,
don't remind me.
So he got hurt. Don't think it was a first.
Not a great way to start your Sunday when your player that's on all your parlays goes down on the first drive. So
that didn't.
Not fun.
Good play. But I did have Jaden Daniels on the over rushing yard. That was part of my lovely QB play, and maybe we can get that into. Maybe we'll just kind of cover that as a general. But that did pay out quite nicely. Ended up with 7 carries for 74 yards, and he scored a touchdown and did a little Jared McCain dance in the end zone there for TikTok. So we love to see that. I thought that was hilarious, but definitely called that play. And the rushing against the Cowboys, they've just been giving it up all year, and glad to see that line was as low as it was, because that was beautiful.
Yeah, I think the game as a whole too just finished incredibly. Just
Great
what a
fashion.
roller coaster.
Yeah.
Washington just, I don't know what's going on with these guys.
Yeah.
They're just, the endings to their games are insane. I loved it because I got Terry McLaurin over like 1250 yardage on a seasonal parlay ticket. So huge play at the end there, but that's wild, man. But to go in there and just kicker misses the extra point.
Yeah.
Like What a way to fucking go out,
Yeah.
man. And then they run the kickoff back. Like
Yeah.
this series of events that happened like 3 plays
Yeah.
apart
What an
was
ending.
incredible. Such an ending to that game.
Yeah.
So, and I was funny enough, I was listening to the guys on the NFL network on Sirius XM, and we're talking about the matchup on this Thursday night, Dallas against the Giants, and how it might not even be Tommy DeVito playing. It might be like Trey Lance for Dallas versus who's the third stringer. Drew Lock's going to get a start, I guess, now because
Yeah.
Tommy can't play.
Yeah.
And that's going to be your Thanksgiving matchup. And not only that, but it's like with Dallas has 4 wins now. They're actually not that far out of it. So they're like, could Dallas potentially sneak in here if they string together some wins?
I'm sorry.
God.
It's just not going to be a
It's
thing.
the hypotheticals you get into with this league
is the delusional
hilarious
shit that comes out of the Cowboys. This is like, and I understand it. We've talked about this. It's like you just get into those theories. You've done it. You did it 2 fucking pods ago where you're like, we're going to go to the Super Bowl. And I'm like,
the entire year has been just a
brother,
delusional roller coaster for me.
I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things, but that's fine. That's what you get. And
quick little touch here though on Dallas's season and Mike McCarthy. Like we just had, I'm sure you saw popping up talking about Jerry Jones coming out and talking about a contract extension for Mike McCarthy, and I'm just if I'm a Cowboys fan, are you not just smashing your face off a fucking wall?
I think
listening
they are.
To this shit?
From what I understand, they're just and from what we see in our comments is like on our different posts, the Dallas faithful are running out of hope and faith in where they're going. So it's just like you have some pieces here that you can build on. Probably put a little too much money in the hand of Dak, just given his record. It's kind of the same scenario that happened with Romo too. Like it's almost like the history's repeating itself, and these guys just keep doing the same thing, repeating, and expect a different result. It's the definition of insanity. So yeah, I don't know. It's a tough go. Even the same thing with the coaching. It's like he likes his guys and he pays his guys, and that's fine. If you're just maybe the fucking locker room stuff is like, yo, just make Jerry feel good about himself and you're going to get paid. Like, it's like Mike McCarthy's out there just being like, yeah, everything's great. We're doing this and we're really trying to establish a culture. And he's like, I really like that. That sounds awesome.
It's like, fucking awful because they got all the money in the world too. And they're just like, they got to do something different in the offseason. They run it back with this coach. I think the injury is a saving grace for McCarthy, Dak going down. But like at the same time, I look at it and we talk about the Dak thing and paying Dak, and you look at this quarterback draft class, like it's not even a good quarterback draft class. Like there isn't good quarterbacks coming into the league. It's already a scarce position. So you got to pay them because realistically, Dak can win you games.
For sure.
Can he win you the ones that matter? We don't know, but he's going to need a hell of a team surrounding him to get to that point even. And Jerry just hasn't done that. So
what the thing is with Dak, I find, is you can't get the ball in his hands on the last drive. You have to win it on defense. Like if he can get you there and then give the ball over, the defense has to win those games. Because if you give it to him on the last drive, you're not winning that game. And that's just the unfortunate part of Dak's career. Yeah. It's like you can't give him that opportunity because he will fuck it up. Like it is what it is. It's been there this entire time. So
I think that's completely it's that. Or if you just had some semblance of a running game to lean on, you wouldn't have to rely on him so much.
Yeah.
Like you look at the years when he came into the league with Zeke, and you had Zeke, he was such a good running back to rely on. You had a good offensive line. Like that's when he flourished the most. Now you've just gotten away from that. You've gone to this like Dak's going to throw 35 plus balls a game, and that's the game plan we're going to have. Like, what the fuck was that? That's not how Dak's going to win you football games. So you got to get back to the running game, and that's why I say like,
and they
Dallas
had an
is
incredible
in that spot,
defense for like 2 or 3 years. And
Yeah.
then obviously
But
that's fallen
defensive
off.
coordinator left, and then Mike
Yeah.
Zimmer came in, and they just haven't been the same. Some injuries, this and that. But
So yeah, he
that's
can
why
win
I
you
just
games,
think,
but
yeah.
the
But
defense
you
will win you the games. Actually, like if you look back at
100%.
that, that's exactly how it was going. So yeah, it is what it
That's where
is.
they're going to need that balance, and we'll touch kind of on that running back effect a little later here. But yeah, let's bounce into the Lions Colts game. We'll talk
Sure.
about this because this is one of the games that we knew. We looked at that 7.5 and we're like, fuck, that seems like a really low number for a Detroit team that's just been obliterating other opponents. And yeah, we were right. Now, mind you, they didn't put up a 50 burger this time around, but they controlled the shit out of that game. I think for them, the biggest thing was just getting out of that game healthy because they were losing a couple bodies here and there the entirety of that game. Funny enough, one of them was my guy, Josh Downs, fucking pick of the week here. Dude had like 3 20-yard passes that were called back because of flags. And then he goes out with the shoulder injury. And I just, that was brutal for me between the Brian Robinson and the Downs. The injuries will get you, man. And that's the shitty thing about betting. But it is what it is. Colts, Anthony Richardson looking a little shaky again. But what are we doing? Like,
is he back?
Well, he's never really even been here yet.
Well, that's what my point was last week.
You got to develop him.
I was like, he's got to get a few more reps under his belt before we just, call him the fucking Colts, the next coming of Peyton Manning. I think there is going to be some steps that need to be taken here before that, got definitely talented. Yeah. Not saying he's not, but, there was obviously a coaching period there where they said, hey, you're going to sit this out. And just for NFL, like you just got to be respectful of that. But then on the flip side of this is like, yeah, like we're starting to see it with Bryce Young, some of that come back around, right? And fuck, Will Levis? No, I'm joking.
Don't even start with that nonsense.
What?
Oh man,
I'm just saying. The idea here is like, he's still got a long way to go here, and it's going to take a whole other year probably of getting his feet wet for this to really kind of come to be. And it's just the support, right? Like the receiving core. It's definitely not terrible. But there's nothing really outstanding. Work. It needs work.
It needs work. Like Josh Downs has come on. Pittman's been injured. He's been banged up. He's hobbling. He had a decent game though, but you can see the accuracy issues with Anthony Richardson in that game, missing a lot of those deep shots too. And you just can't. He can't win games from behind. And you got like Gibbs was running all over them. That run game just chewed up Indianapolis.
It's absurd. I love what it is.
Will the team back.
Yeah, like I love what it is with the Lions. Like the Lions are going to hit you like in the greatest ways possible because either it's going to be, hey, what is this team good against? Are they good against a finesse running back or are they good against a power running back? Cool. We're just going to switch this shit up and we're going to throw Jahmyr Gibbs at you and he's just going to run on you all fucking day. And then when you least expect it at the goal line, we're just going to stuff one in with David Montgomery. Like it's they can pump in 3 touchdowns with those two guys so consistently that it's hard to fucking defend it. Like we talk about obviously the backfield with Lamar and Derrick Henry and the Jalen Hurts and Saquon situation. This backfield is just as fucking dangerous. And you don't know what's coming, especially considering things.
Yeah.
Fuck, you frozen again.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No, we're good.
Oh fuck.
You got me?
Yeah, I do a little bit now. Yeah,
we're good.
Yeah.
Oh, some technical issues during the pod. We love it. Fucking love it.
Yeah.
But I think you're talking about like Anthony Richardson. They got Jonathan Taylor, and we talked about this at the start of the year. Is using that kind of dual threat running game that you have.
The run threat.
They don't have the passing game down, and that's where they lack that balance.
Yeah.
And then you look at the other side of the ball, like Detroit can control games because they're so good across the field. But I find the way you beat Detroit is you have to control the game yourself. So if you can run the ball and you can control clock and keep it out of the offense's hands and keep Jared Goff off the field and then force him to make mistakes, that's where you win the games, right?
Yeah.
But Indy they couldn't do that, man. And then they started to force it Richardson tries to play a little bit of hero ball,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't work out that
Yeah.
way.
Do
That's
you
when
know what the
Detroit's
time
going to
of
kill you.
possession is? The stats are for
Oh
this
man,
game?
it was probably brutal.
Yeah. So 22 minutes, 59 seconds for the Colts, and 37 minutes
Yeah,
for
they
the
controlled
Lions.
that game.
The whole fucking game.
They controlled
Like,
that game.
and that's what the Lions have done. And that just, it shows. And that's why it's hard to take that, when you see that spread in that position, it's hard not to, because they're 9-2 on the spread this year. Like, and
Yeah,
the reason for that is because they control the ball. You control the
yeah,
ball, you can score the ball. Like,
yeah.
simple fucking math there. Like,
I know.
control the ball, score the ball.
Detroit's a tough team. Like you gotta steal possessions, you gotta make them make mistakes, and you gotta get a lead on these guys to force pressure. Because once you get Goff throwing the ball, that's where the mistakes come from. It's not gonna happen in that run game because once they get going, it's tough to stop that team. But so
Yeah.
bets
So
were kind of
one thing I think
here
we
and
just
there.
kind of review on the props in the games that we had. I
Yeah,
had the over total. That did not come through. It was definitely not a scoring affair. The Colts did not come to
Colts
show
couldn't
for
help
that.
you out
I
there.
did kind of pitch to say that they were going to be between 24 and 30 points. So got there covered on the Detroit side of the ball, but you had the Detroit spread. That was the right pick to make.
Yeah,
I did have the rushing yards for Mr. Goff, and that guy, as soon as that fourth quarter started, I was like, he's going to kneel. 100%. He's getting out
Jeff
there.
texts me. He's like, "I'm gonna lose this on a fucking
Yeah.
quarterback kneel."
I
I
was
know
like,
it.
they're not gonna give me this and guarantee it, and that's fair. I understand the books and how they work. And I was like, this guy is gonna kneel in at the end of the game and he's gonna lose a yard, and that's how I'm gonna lose this bet. And I was like, you
You
can't
know what would
maybe.
have been even shittier is if Tua hit his line and you lost
And
on
then
Jared
Goff
Goff
lost.
kneeling.
Yeah.
So I'm
And I think
glad you
that's the
just
funniest spot.
missed on both of them
But
because
that's why
that would have
that's
sucked.
fair. That's fair. Yeah, the other side of that was like it would be. I was waiting. I was like, hopefully Detroit doesn't get the ball. Let's just maybe just hope in the last drive they don't get the ball, because then we're good and we're gonna
Yeah,
cash. And then fucking right, I think it was like
couldn't get
43
it.
seconds left. I'm like, that's done. All right, there's a Neil. So that is what it is. Lost that one. 0-2 on that game for me. And obviously
Wait, that counts
1-1.
as a rush attempt too, no?
It does. He had 2 rush attempts for 0 yards. That's how it played
So
out.
for all you guys out there, a little heads up, if you're taking those quarterback rushing props that are like 0.5, pay attention to those rushing attempts too, because a kneel
Yeah.
down counts as an attempt.
Yeah.
And the negative yards on the kneel down counts as negative yardage. So
Yeah, I tried to hedge that
remember
shit.
that.
It was not there. I was like, give that other line for me. And they did not do it. So
It was spicy though. We like to take. It was a
yeah.
good one. It was
No,
looking good.
it was looking good. We just fell shy and won, so that's it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then you took Josh down on the over on the yards, so you were 1-1 on the game. I was 0-2.
That was wild.
Shite, but that is what it is. Let's go into this Chicago Minnesota game.
Yes.
What'd you think?
Yes. Loved it. I think I'm getting a little bit of reminiscence of the Bengals watching the Bears close out some of these games lately, because they're just willing their way in and just not closing, whether it's like the missed field goals or whatever it may be, the mistakes. Like I'm watching it, I'm like, holy
Starting
shit.
to come together. You can kind of
tell.
like
you fire that shitty offensive coordinator, and then now you look at this team.
Caleb
like,
Williams,
they're playing a little bit better.
Threading the fucking ball.
He's
in different coverages.
Some good shots, man. Did you see that one to DeAndre Swift down the sideline there?
There's that. There was like 3 or 4 that were just absolute piss missiles to the fucking, and I was like, and in tight coverage, like in like fucking like 3-guy coverage. Like I was like, holy fuck, like there's something here. It might not materialize this year. It's starting to look a little bit better, but holy shit, this guy, there's a reason he was picked first overall. He can play. Just give it time. Holy shit. I was watching. I was like, oh man, that's a fucking like dot.
Yeah,
and then we had talked about like even Matt Stafford and just like, you know, how incredibly like solid he can be. And there was a shot to Puka in that game. We'll get into it on the sideline. But like that's the type of throws that Caleb Williams was making in this game, and that's a professional NFL quarterback. I don't think there's going to be any doubt that this guy's going to have a good career. It's just time getting the weapons surrounding, and I think it's gonna be
Get
there.
some better coaching in there too, and I think like the developmental process, it'll be there. But yeah, he made a wicked scramble play too. I think it was on the 4th down where he just like he hopped over a couple bodies and scrambled for the first down. And like, yeah, he's talented as ever, man. And it's gonna be exciting to see his development and how the Bears come on the end of the season here. But in terms of like some of the plays that we took, I got the Bears to cover the spread. So I mean, that comeback, I was going pretty nutso there, cheering for the Bears coming back. I wanted to see them pull out the dub just for Caleb Williams and what the Bears are going through as of late, but couldn't get it done. And then you got Minnesota on the money line there. And then I took
running
the
that
L
all
on the
year,
O.
man. And it's it's so beautiful.
Paying out.
Yeah. Then you know what it is? It's not there where it should be given how they've played. Like it's like I said, it was like Houston last year where that line didn't ever move past and people just were like getting shocked by Houston and how they were playing. And I feel like this is the same thing with this Minnesota team. They're just kind of going in there, doing what they need to do. And at this point, you shouldn't be shocked by it, but teams and the lines continually underplay it. So it's like, sick. I'm going to take advantage of that every fucking day. Especially against the Bears. Like, and just the Bears are not, they're just not
two
playing.
Teams going in the opposite direction, right?
Playing well lately, but like in the past, they're just not there yet. So
100%. I think when I look at it, like I had the narrative coming in where like their offense just hasn't looked the same without Darisaw in the lineup, and it shows. But I look at it, and this is shout out to all my Justin Jefferson fantasy football owners out there losing their minds watching this game. Addison's going off. He's got 140 at Tutty.
Oh, I know.
Everybody's getting the ball.
Aware of that,
and Jefferson's had one catch all game. One catch. And I'm sitting there going, what the fuck are we doing? And Jefferson comes out in the post-game presser. He's just like, well, if I'm not eating, everybody else is going to eat around me. So, like, I get it. You're going to bracket coverage the best guy on the team and try and take him away. You got to do what you got to do. But sucks to see that from a fantasy football perspective for sure. But they just, I mean, they're a very balanced team right now. They're getting it done. And it's clearly showing.
They are balanced. Yeah.
Their defense is playing good. Like, they're doing everything they need to be a competitive team. And
maybe not this game. Giving up 27 points is not
that was more of a late game surge from the Bears, but they controlled the entire game, right? Like they were up by 2 scores, and it was just a bad push. Sometimes you get the momentum going the other way, but they still close it out. That's the big thing.
Both QBs showed up in this game. 330 yards and 2 tutties for Sam, and then Caleb had 340 with 2. So that's big, man. These guys are coming along. But I had the under on Sam Darnold's rush attempts. I liked where the Bears were positioned on that and what the situation was for the Vikings. He ends up with 2 carries for -1 yard. So that played out really, really nicely. So called that. Love to see it. And then just we're going to be kind of looking into these different sneaky plays as the weeks kind of go on here towards the end of the season. Because a lot of these things, there's now enough data and stuff to suggest that some of these lines are probably not where they should be, given how these teams have actually played against that. And that was, for me, it was just the teams were not being successful on rush attempts against the Bears. So simple as that, and came through. So beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And then you had Bears spread, which is beautiful. Yeah.
Bears spread, but then I had the Odunze. Now, safe to say, I think all of us were on the, Keenan Allen's injured. Yeah. We're going to take the Odunze over because somebody's got to get the ball here against the weak secondary of the Minnesota Vikings. And what happens? Keenan Allen comes out and has a game of the year. And Odunze does not hit his over line. Yeah. And we are once again smashing our head on the desk because of the nonsense that comes out prior to.
Everyone but, essentially.
Oh, man.
Keenan
It's been a
Allen,
week.
DJ
It's been
Moore had
quite
a
a week with
day.
some of these. Yeah.
These guys just had a
Everybody
day.
but
Cole Kmet
Odunze hit his
had a
number.
good day. Everyone had a good day. And you know what's
It was
funny though? He
wild.
did get 10 targets. So it just didn't translate to yards. And I
Yeah.
think that was the biggest thing. So 10 targets, 5 receptions, 39 yards. And I believe the line was set at 45 and a half.
Yep.
So that's you catch one more ball in that situation and you're
Yeah.
probably covering that line. So
Yeah.
it's a tough break for sure.
That was a gut
But
shot for sure.
they don't talk
Tough one.
about our what is it? They don't talk about our wins. They don't talk about our losses forever
Yeah.
for betting. So yeah, it is what it is.
It is what it is. On to the next one. So let's talk. We're going to get into Texans and Titans now. This being one of the trap games on the card from the weekend. Safe to say, took a lot of L's with this game. Both of us had the Texans on the spread. I think we don't really have a feel for what Tennessee is going to do. And we said this.
We did.
They are a tale of two
We
different
don't know
teams,
what
man.
the fuck they're gonna be.
They're like we
Fade the
said
Titans.
beginning of the year, we said they're going to be scrappy, and this is what we meant is they're just going to steal
Yep.
games that they should have no
Shouldn't.
business winning.
Yep.
And this was one of them, man.
I think their
And
lines was 4.5, right? I think it was 4.5 on the season. So I'm not sure if they're going to get that, but this type of game is exactly the reason why you should. So yeah, and then Tony Pollard, great game. We spoke about him on the last pod and said how that guy was, he was doing what he needed to do, but the rest of the team was just kind of inconsistent. And the guys that we actually spoke about were Calvin Ridley and Tony Pollard, and lo and behold, 2 big games. And talking Will Levis, the maniac, coming through.
That's it.
Doing what he needed to do.
Tennessee's defense is pretty solid, but when we look at, I guess the Texans, like we thought after that big victory against Dallas, we're just like, oh, okay, now like Texans are going to, start to put it together and this and that. But dude, they just haven't been convincing all year. And I mean, we're looking at it. We're like, Stroud has not been impressive.
He hasn't been. But I will say the switch up that fucking Texan fans that I'm seeing on social media are having, it's fucking ridiculous. Like, first thing I see, and it's a huge one that's going on right now, is this guy's like, yo, CJ Stroud's in my home. You walk into, the guy turns around, it's a fucking trash can. And I'm like, yo, you don't, like, what is that? Like, this guy.
Yeah, like, dude, like it happens fast, man. This is the NFL. It's
you gotta fucking relax on this. You guys were just being like MVP, this, that, and the other. Now you're gonna just toss this guy aside. Like, fuck that. That's garbage.
I've seen some shit too, trash. But well, it's just not coming to fruition. You're 12 games in, and it's like you just haven't shown the same quarterback that you were last season.
No,
and to
that's
me,
fair.
I look at it too, and I'm
like, this happens. This happens in the NFL with every fucking quarterback.
Tough to be a professional athlete,
relax.
by all means.
Like, holy shit. And
I think the big thing,
7-5. Like,
but it's not convincing.
It's not but
convincing.
It's still there. And so you have to respect that it's still a winning record with a quarterback that's in a sophomore slump. If anything, you guys are in a great position going forward because you have a winning record in a quarterback that's not performing. Like, that's a great place to be. So
at the end of
switch
the day,
it's fucking nuts.
Yeah, you got to hit your stride when it matters, get into the playoffs, and it doesn't matter. You get into the dance, anything can happen. That's the goal, right? But you look at this, and I think the frustrating thing is, and partly, with one of the losses I took from my cards is under on the Joe Mixon attempts. Like, I took the over. They're just not. Mixon had I think he had under 30 yards rushing too. They couldn't get the run game going, and that's been a huge staple of what they've done this year. And I'm just like, why aren't you sticking with it? There were points where they're just trying to force balls.
Yeah.
I just didn't understand it. You got to stick with that run a little bit more, especially when Stroud hasn't been playing very well. But very sloppy game on their part, and Tennessee pulls this one out. But Texans,
so we both had the spread. That did not happen, obviously, with the loss.
Nope.
I had Collins at 5.5. This dude gets 5 for 92 and a touchdown. So still had a great game, but just not enough. Didn't get that.
I think Collins is more of a yardage guy.
He is. That line was a little lower, I thought, too, because his line has been set at 6.5.
Yeah, I would agree with you for sure there.
And so I was just like, okay, this is, But if it's going that low, they're thinking there's reasons why. So that just was that little bit too low. This is where I like to squeeze that like on the actual receptions line and just go for the exact one that's just that tiny bit lower, even on that. And I've done that in the pods in the past weeks where I took it, it was 6, but I took it at 5. Pay a little bit, more out of your pocket on the just so that you know that that's going to be there.
Yeah.
And this was that situation that should have been done. So 5.5 didn't come through. You had obviously the rushing attempts, as you mentioned. It was really high though. And we kind of red flagged that a little bit. 21.5, he's been performing to that, but I didn't love it.
The rushing
Didn't come through
attempts,
for
yeah.
us.
Like
Yeah. So we were
I
0-2,
was
both of
outlining
us,
the
for this
numbers
one.
in the previous show though, where it was like he was hitting like 23, 24 carries consistently, and they were having success with that.
Yeah.
And I was like, in order to win these games, I think you got to feed him 20 plus carries a game. So I expected that, but it's just they were really trying to force it, and it didn't look pretty, man. Like he was struggling, so I didn't understand why he wasn't getting the ball more. And
Yeah.
I think Mixon was a little frustrated too because
Yep.
he could tell that he can impact the game when he gets his carries. But I mean, it is
Yeah.
what it is. You can't be perfect every game, right? Shit
Nope.
happens. You make adjustments. You go from there. But yeah,
All
let's
right.
wrap that game up. Let's dive over to let's talk Tampa Giants.
Sure. So
Tampa Giants. All right.
what a
So
beautiful
both of us
game.
took the over.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't hit.
Didn't hit.
Did not hit. Giants didn't help us on that. Tommy Cutlets was
No, that was the best part
was
of our
not doing a damn
man.
thing
Like, and
for
I'm
us.
sure everyone at home, and if you're doing this and you're listening and you're like, you're so overly convinced and you're saying everything. And then you like, for us, we're fortunate that we have a fucking podcast that we talk into and we can look back on our takes and what exactly is that we said. And so we're just ripping Tommy DeVito in the fucking game before and just being like, this is, it's not, we just don't expect him to have a big game, this, that, and the other. So we're literally saying that he's not going to have a great game. And
Yeah.
then both of us are like, yeah, so let's take the total. Like, are we fucking, like, what are we thinking? Like, I was like, what's going on right now? It was like, I expect Baker to put up some points. Well, he did, but we just other guy. And so if he's not going to put up any points, this total was never in fucking consideration.
Yeah, I know.
So
I
it's
don't
just
think we
so
thought
funny
that one
listening
through.
to it back and being like, what were we doing? So we will be better. We will continue to learn and grow
The
and take these
accountability is
notes.
here, guys. I
Yeah.
promise.
And
But
yeah, super fun.
hey, I hit on the Mike Evans over. Like I thought
Yeah.
that line was pretty low,
You
although he
did. You
didn't go
called that one
crazy
for
over.
sure. Yeah.
But
You said one play and it almost did. And he had like a
yeah,
big
legit.
catch. So
Mike Evans gets a deep shot at least once a game. So
yep.
like you can
Well,
bank
he's
on that.
big,
You never
big
know.
deep threat for sure. And then and then I had that line for Baker on the rushing line. That was 11.5, and he came through big on that one as well. He went
Yeah, you
for
had the
fucking
rushing TD too.
29 yards, 4 attempts, and he had a rushing TD. Beautiful little fucking gesture to Tommy Cutlets as
Your
well.
buddy's coming out here. He's doing
Fucking
the
hilarious, man. I'm like, what a goon. This guy's great. Love it.
wild,
But
wild.
I think both of the guys I took the yardage on for the rushing, at least the rushing yards. Well, I had two as well because I thought he was a maniac. But we'll get into that. But both those guys had scoring touchdowns as well. So it was a good
Yeah.
week to call on some QB rushing yards.
Aside from that, nothing else really kind of stood out in that Tampa Giants game. Pretty boring,
Yeah,
pretty straightforward. Was what it was.
we knew what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave that one there. We'll bounce over to Pat's Dolphins, segue into that kind of Tua rushing prop. I think we've kind of touched on all the quarterback rushers here on the card.
Yeah.
But you're looking at that Pat's Dolphins game. I guess it goes the way that you probably would have expected it to go.
Yes.
I was just telling Jeff prior to the show, I forgot like the Dolphins can be a good teams, but I just
Yeah.
don't think you take them seriously enough. Like
I
they're going to
think
go
lately
and
you
blow out
have
the
to.
shitty teams lately,
Yeah.
but I remember distinctly mentioning this when we were doing the Dolphins take, start of the season. I said they're going to blow out the shit teams. They always do.
Yep.
And they just don't win the big games. So you never take them seriously
Yeah.
because they're just that team. They beat up on the bad
Yeah. Well, I
and they
think we
can't win the
had
big.
the original take that we had was about the Dolphins in the early go of the slate. Something in the water
They
and something
start
in the
hot.
in the
Yeah.
sun. They start hot, right? And then as the season progresses, they really cool off. Well, they're going to need to change up that
Yeah.
behavior if they're going to win and win lots in this last little bit here, considering all the stuff with Tua's injury. So that's where I was at with it. This team looks reminiscent of the early days of last summer, and just how the team is kind of operating on offense. So there is something to be said about this team. McDaniel definitely needs Tua. I think that's well established now.
Of course.
In,
Absolutely.
in order for this team to be functioning correctly, he needs that. And then like a chain and everyone being healthy, only helps this matter. So it's like this team can be an absolute offensive juggernaut. It's just making sure that everyone stays healthy, which has always been the problem with this team. They're so brittle, and so small. They're just small offense. Like that's my
Yeah, they're
biggest
not
takeaway,
tough,
right?
man.
So
They're not a
that's
tough
that's for
team.
me. But yeah, I took Tua on some rushing. He did have 3 carries. He had -2 yards, so he went the other way on my line. That's cool. Thanks, buddy. Um, but I thought he was just gonna be a little bit of a
Yeah, you
nutcase and
thought you
go
were
for it.
slick with that pick. It's all right, man. We
I
always
did.
have
It
those
was also
plays.
the numbers backed it up. So I will
Yeah.
always run with the numbers in every case for this, and add a little feel into it where the biggest part of this game was the spread, right? I think I called the spread, but didn't take into account that if this team blew them out, that they wouldn't be rushing the ball as much. And I think it was 24-0 at one point. So that ball was not getting run. So
Yeah, I think that
that
was
is
the
what it is.
narrative that we just kind of missed out on was the fact that this could have been a blowout and you're just not going to run the ball unnecessarily when you don't
Yeah,
need to. And it was what it was. But love to take. The parlay came up a little bit short, but
just
don't
short.
worry. I'm sure
We'll
we'll
hit
cook up
another one.
something stupid again for
Yep.
next week. We'll figure it out. We'll
You
follow
know
the
what I want
numbers.
to
We'll go
do,
from
and we'll
there.
get into this. I do want to have a special parlay every single one of these things, and
Oh,
we'll
hell
name
yeah.
it something stupid, and we'll just have it cooked up, and we'll really get it ready and rocking for you guys. Because
Hell yeah.
I will find these little
You'll find
nuances
one. It's going to hit too.
within these, and we will hit one, and it will be a whale, and we will enjoy it. And that's the biggest thing about it is just having some fun with this shit. You know. Cooking up a rushing QB parlay with 3 guys that don't rush the ball, and then lo and behold, the 2 that don't rush the ball don't rush the ball. Shocker, but it is it is what it is. And so that's what the sports betting's all about, finding those
That's what
little
it's about.
those nuances. So,
That's it.
but yeah, so I
No,
don't think you had a game take, but you did have Ramondre Stevenson for
came
his
out, said
yards
Ramondre was going to have a game. They
and
just couldn't
eight
get
for
anything going.
13.
Doesn't help when you go
Didn't
down
do it.
21 in the first
Yeah,
quarter and
yeah, they're not
it
running the
kind of
ball.
it's wraps. Yeah, you're
That's
not running
where
the ball.
I always, just as a tip, I never go with the rushing play on a game that I feel the spread is going to be there where the quarterback has to play
Yeah,
and pass the ball. You never take the rushing game on
I
the
wasn't
opposite side of that.
I wasn't giving the Dolphins enough credit going into this game.
Yeah.
They're starting to get rolling here, and I mean the Dolphins were pressuring New England all game, man. Drake
Yep.
May was on his back; they couldn't get anything going. So, shitty take on my part on that one, but kind of is what it is. We'll see what the Dolphins are this week because they're playing in Green Bay, a little
Mm-hmm.
cold weather game for Mister Tua. There doesn't fare too well in those ones. We'll see if this Dolphins team is for real down
Mm-hmm.
the stretch. But let's bounce off of that game. Let's get into ones we didn't exactly touch on preliminarily, but the
Mm-hmm.
Broncos against the Raiders. I think it's safe to say Raiders just lost Gardner Minshew for the season with a fractured clavicle. Raiders are tanking here. They're tanking,
Yeah.
and
As they
that's
should.
good because they need to.
Yeah.
And I think it's at this point it's wheels up for Shadur Sanders. Based on this quarterback class, it's not great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even from Shadur's perspective, they lost to Kansas this past weekend. It's not like he's looked standout. It's just kind of what it is when it comes to the quarterback class this year coming out of college.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at the flip side, And you look at the way that Denver's playing, they're 7-5 right now, man. The Denver Broncos are 7-5. Bo Nix is up there now. He's almost even odds with Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year. And some
What a
would say that
season.
he's probably leading the pack right now. Like,
Yep.
what a wild turn of events for this guy. And the way these guys are playing, I think from my perspective, I haven't even had a chance to really watch too much of these Broncos game. I want to go back and actually watch some of the film just to see how these guys are doing it, because he's turning Cortland Sutton into like a top 10 receiver from a fantasy perspective, at least every single week now.
Well,
And
Cortland
not only
definitely thinks
that,
so.
yeah,
He's like, this guy's
absolutely.
the MVP. Yeah, buddy, you're
It's
you're getting
he's
fed
throwing to
here.
guys like
Yeah.
Devon Vele, like a
Yeah.
bunch of rookie receivers here, and they're putting up numbers. I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at it, it's Sean Payton, man. Sean
Yeah.
Payton. He's a good coach. He's been there. He's done it before. And then who knows, man? This Bo Nix guy could be the real deal.
I think
It's
he is a real
crazy
deal.
to see.
I think, yeah, that's the way that this, the offense has been playing. What's funny is, like, I think I don't want to say it's too soon in the grand scheme of the development of this team, but I kind of do. Like, the defense, like, they do have to find those offensive players, and maybe they go out. They've done it in the past where they signed some guys. But we were talking about this a little earlier about Jerry Jeudy, him getting kind of shipped out. And then, that was one of your guys that you were kind of thinking, okay, this is going to be something, at least from an offensive perspective. Now you start getting rolling on offense, and now you're in that position where, shit, I think we kind of need one of those guys again to kind of start to solidify things. So this is the weird sense of the Broncos season, is they're definitely ahead of the path that they expected to be. I truly believe that. Great to see, though. Like, I think Bo Nix is playing out of his mind. The defense is great. Like, you knew what you had in your defense. But it's the other side of the ball now, where it's like, okay, yeah, they can lock some stuff down, but you still got to score some points here. And they've been able to do that. They're creeping up on teams, in that way, and kind of shocking the same way as we're kind of talking about Washington and these other crews. But yeah, I think when it comes down to it, it might just be a little premature. So we'll see how this kind of plays out by the end of the season. But you start looking at them now against, what they're going to have to go up against. The Raiders, we talked about, are a get right team. So I don't take a huge value in this game, considering what's going on. But as we kind of lead out to it, this Broncos team, in the last schedule here, there's a potential here that they're going to win some of these games. And, you're looking at that Broncos team in week 17 as a Bengals fan, and you're probably looking at it a lot different now than you were at the beginning of the season.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's
huge.
a wicked story for sure.
If the Bengals can rattle off some wins here and it comes down to that game, like,
yeah,
the problem is Denver keeps fucking winning, and it's screwing up our odds here of getting in. But they got Cleveland coming up, and funny enough, you mentioned Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy playing the Broncos revenge game. Safe to say Jerry Judy's going on the parlay card this week, baby. I love playing those guys in those spots. So Cleveland Browns, Denver Broncos, then they get the bye. Then they got Indy at the Chargers, Bengals, Chiefs to end the season.
Yep.
This Broncos team looks like it's getting into the playoffs, man. Like, the way they're playing, I don't. That Chargers game is going to be big, because those games are like all these teams, Indy, the Chargers, the Bengals, like all of those teams are vying for those playoff spots there. So those are going to be some big games. So I'm hoping Cleveland can play spoiler here on what game is the Monday nighter. Hoping they can play spoiler on that Monday night game and knock these Broncos down a little bit here. But they've been playing really good football. So pretty cool to see. I love the kind of the underdog story, and that division as a whole, man. Chargers, Broncos. We did not expect this at all from these teams.
Good coaching, man.
Absolutely. It's good coaching. It's amazing what it can do. But yeah, we wrap that game up. Let's bounce off to our next one here. Let's talk Packers 49ers. And I think 49ers just got taken out back to the woodshed, and that was a wrap that game pretty quick.
So this is something that I think our fantasy owners need to start thinking about, because if this 49ers team starts losing just even a few more games and they don't get healthy on
Shut
their
up. I don't want to
teams,
hear that, Jeff.
do you want
Don't
to hear it?
start
Because you
don't
don't
start
want to hear
talking
it.
like that.
What do they do with Christian McCaffrey? Because if all of what's being going on with the health and obviously the longevity of this injury and just making sure things are going,
Yeah, they'll
he's
shut it
obviously
down.
taken a long time. They'll shut it down. And I think that's something to be nervous of. I don't know if I was looking at different options as the trade deadline approached in the league, and just kind of looking at these things. And CMC kind of just red flagged to me, because I'm like, if they start losing just even a couple more of these games, and the schedule isn't beautiful for them, and they're not very healthy, this is going to be one of those opportunities where CMC might get shut down by the end of the season, and that is a terrible thing to see. But again,
So
we
here's
don't
my
know if it's
counter
going to
argument
happen.
to that. Here's my
Well,
counter argument to that.
something to be thinking
Right?
about. Yeah.
You go ahead and you say that you got San Francisco. They're technically in last place in their division right now, which is wild
Mm-hmm.
to think of. But
Mm-hmm.
they're
They're not
literally
far
a
off.
game. They're a
Yeah.
game out of first place too.
Yeah.
So this is when I look at this, I'm like, okay, Brock Purdy, you got a big game upcoming against Buffalo. This is huge. Then
There's a
after
this
that,
this is tough.
yeah,
It's not
after
easy.
that though, they're
Yeah.
playing their entire division again. So these
Yeah.
games are all huge. I think they're going
Yeah.
to be in it the entire way through because of the
Yep.
fact that their division is just an absolute toss up right now.
Yeah.
So unless they start stringing together like multiple losses, I don't see that happening. They're going to be fighting to the
Yeah,
end.
but
Shanahan's not going to
it's
lay down.
as much as we're saying that it can be the one way, it can so quickly be the other too,
Of
right? And
course,
so if you go 2 losses against division, you're done. Like, that's how quickly that can swing. So it's going to be interesting. That Rams game in week 15 is going to be huge, right? And
massive.
then it's just not like, the way I see this is that lion that's just sneaking up in the jungle, that's just waiting like a fucking lion does, is gonna just put this fucking team out of their misery in week 17. Like, it's just, the Lions are just that team this year. So this is where I kind of look and go, hey, I don't know. We'll see. But
Well, when you look at the schedule, like they got the Bills this weekend. I don't know,
yeah,
man. Purdy might be sitting too. Like I think they might just take another one on the chin if he's really not feeling good, because after that, then you get a Bears team that's a winnable game, and then you see like
should be.
the Cardinals are playing the Seahawks again.
Yep.
It's all about kind of the other division. Cardinals got to play the Vikings this week, so that's a tough game for them.
Mm-hmm.
Seattle's going to the Jets. I mean, we just talked about these teams that are out of it stealing wins. You never know what can happen,
You
right?
never know.
So
Yep.
it's going to be interesting to see, but I do think the 49ers are going to be in it till the end just based on how
They're
that
just
division is
so
playing out.
hurt, man. Like, the
They
way I
are.
look at
Well,
this,
they're
they're
missing
just so
everybody.
hurt.
Everybody.
They're missing
Their entire
everyone. They're
defense isn't
getting
on the field.
knee surgery for
Purdy's
Ayuk
out.
just the other day. Like,
Yeah.
it's just one of those seasons that is just so shit. I don't know what Bosa's status is for this week upcoming. But these are
Yeah.
all difference makers, and their difference makers on this team are hurt. And I think that
Yep.
is, pun intended, the difference making, like,
It
in
is.
this whole entire scheme of this. So yeah, this is I don't know, we'll see. This loss against the Packers was kind of one of those, like you said, woodshed moments. Old Yeller, see you later. Because
Yeah,
this
but
is
let's talk about the Packers side of the ball a little bit, because they deserve their flowers for laying a beating on San Fran, regardless of having half their team out. But the
well,
Packers are 8 and
Josh
3 now.
Jacobs leading a beating
Yeah,
on the fucking
Josh
49ers
Jacobs,
right now.
3
Yeah.
touchdowns,
26 carries.
incredible day
I'm
on the ground from
90%
him.
sure he had like 19 carries in the first half. And
Yeah.
I
Oh,
was like,
he
what
did.
the
I think
fuck
he
just
had.
happened?
I had
Yeah.
Josh Jacobs for 15 rush
Yeah.
attempts on one of my cards, and I remember looking at it like it was 2 drives into the game, and he
Yeah.
was already at like 2 rushes away from this or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like, it's one of those moments where you're just like, how the fuck didn't I hammer this play?
Yeah.
Like, you knew it was there. But yeah, that was a Josh Jacobs day, 3 tutties, man, and he's been having a hell of a season with the Packers. But Green Bay, man, they're playing sound football.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, they're just like Detroit, like these other teams, like the
Yeah.
Vikings, they're just playing all around football,
Yeah.
all phases. They got guys
Great
making
division,
plays,
man. Fuck.
offense, defense, special
Yeah.
teams, well coached. And you're seeing what happens when you get
Yeah.
those things together.
I
So
want to say it's the best division in football. Like,
absolutely. I would agree
I
with you
think
right
just
now.
hands down with just what, we briefly talked about this to start the season. I think this is just like, it is just such a good division.
Yeah,
Like,
it
so
is.
much fun to watch.
It's been solid. So
Yeah.
it'd be cool to watch down the playoffs here too.
Yeah. And the
Like 3
Vikings just
teams make
adding
it
that
in.
little spice in there is just
Yep.
like, oh, like who would have thought it would be that? Like, and just it just layers it, right? So and with Caleb Williams coming on in the future, it's gonna be wicked. It's gonna be wicked.
Absolutely. Now let's bounce on to the Seahawks and the Cardinals here. This one was a bit of a head scratcher to me.
No, it's not. It's not that hard. I'll tell you. It was double XP weekend and Black Ops 6. And Kyler Murray played
Kyler
Black
was a
Ops
little
6
tired.
all the
Showed
way
up
up
just out of it.
until and this is the result.
This
However,
is what
he
you
did,
get.
he did throw for 285 yards, but no touchdowns, one pick. That's the running joke, because this guy can't play on double XP weekends in Call of Duty. And I loved it because then it just showed it. And then Seahawks actually posted about it. I thought that was so fucking good. They actually just did like a Seahawk fucking mascot, just absolutely shitting on the Cardinals mascot. And I was in Call of Duty and I loved it. I thought that was so fucking good. So kudos and shout out to them.
Yeah. Now, from like a statistical standpoint, nobody really stood out massively aside from like JSN's been really coming into his own. Yes, fuck Trey, I forgot about him. Funny enough, he doesn't have a touchdown all year, I don't think. I think he only has the one touchdown where he fell on the fumble in the end zone. The rest of it, it's just been catches and yardage. And fuck, man, guy's getting
PPR
like 10
glory.
plus targets a game. It's wild, man.
It is.
He's right up there with Brock Bowers this year.
Yeah, Bowers, I was going to say. Those two guys, young guys, they're, I know McGrath's a little older, but it's, no, they're talents, man. So definitely the tight end position is strong for years to come with these guys in the league. But
Marvin Harrison had that TD called back.
Yep.
Quiet game from him otherwise, but Cardinals just really couldn't get anything going. James Conner, brutal game. And I mean, the narrative's been like Seattle's rush defense isn't very good. So they held him in check. They just couldn't get anything going on the ground. I think that's what really, kind of fucked up the Cardinals this week is if they don't get the running game going, they're going to struggle when it's just on Kyler's shoulders. But when you look at the Seattle side, JSN's really coming into his own.
Yes.
He's like, I think he's like top 10.
Yeah, DK
top 12 in PPR, I think now, receiver wise.
DK is coming back from his injury, so he's not yet fully back into this offense, I would say. But I think that's definitely helping. JSN get his touches and get his.
He's really coming into his own now, too.
And they said so. I think the comments that who was it? I believe it was Jefferson, and maybe Waddle, and they had said that JSN was the best coming out of that crew. I'm not actually sure if it was Jefferson, but someone along those lines. And they said that, this was the guy who's going to sneak up on you. And Absolutely. He's definitely coming into his own in the NFL here. So not shocking. It's definitely coming. Keep an eye on this guy, especially in redraft leagues into next year. He's going to be that kind of sneaky third, fourth rounder that you're going to pick up and you're going to love. So,
I grabbed him late this year. It's been paying off. You just had to wait on it for a little bit, but he's definitely been showing up for sure in these games. But
I got DK and JSN on one team because of that situation. And I was like, one of these guys is going to be solid. And they ended up both being great so far. Yeah. Metcalf got hurt. He's coming back. I'm loving to see that. So,
good on him in that division. We just talked about that. All they're all tied up now. That was a
Yeah,
big game for Seattle there.
that was
So
huge for
that'll be
Seattle.
interesting to see down the line. But now let's bounce into that late night game. Can't wait to talk about this one. Philadelphia Eagles
Mm-hmm.
against the LA Rams.
That's where we cover
Philly
off these
really
points.
laid a beating in this game.
Yeah.
And I think we got to talk about Mr. Saquon Barkley and
Mm-hmm.
what a game, what a season this guy is having. He has now officially entered the MVP chat, and I think it's rightfully so. We got to be talking about this because
Yeah.
he's having a hell of a year, man.
Oh yeah. No, I actually like I put him at 1,000 yards on a lot of the season tickets that I had, and I'm just kind of laughing to myself. I'm like, fuck, should have taken it way above it. Just given what we knew the Philadelphia's offensive line was, and just the situation that it was going to be like between Jalen Hurts and his rushing opportunity, and then obviously just the dynamic, between AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. Just that's such a good offense. You add Saquon into it, it's just like you can immediately take that as an upgrade 40 times over Swift, right? Like
Yeah,
it was
I agree.
just so there, and it's like coming out of a bad situation, he wants to show up and be like, all that hype about me, well, it's fucking real. And it's definitely real. We said, I think I posted the clip where the one guy in the Giants office, it's like, dude, are we sure? Are we sure we want to do like we no one else is gonna pay him? No one else is gonna do this? And it's like he's politely saying, "You're a fucking idiot. Like,
Yeah,
why are
legit.
you not keeping this guy?" Um,
That was a clip with
and
Joe
yeah,
showing the GM
yeah,
with what was it, his kid was in the office too or something like that.
yeah,
Where
another
they're
one.
just like
Yeah,
that was another one, but like and then the owner's like, I will feel like shit if he goes to
yeah,
Philly and I have to watch that. And he is truly living that out this year.
yeah. It's
Um
beautiful.
I I don't know how you watch that shit, man. Like that's gotta sting.
Well, that was the joke. So then I don't know. We tweeted out there's a retweet that we kind of posted on our story as well, and it was like the main insider for the Giants basically saying that like Schoen and Dable were fired, and we're like, fuck, that's real, like that's crazy, but not shocking considering what like buddies watching at home and being like, the
Legit.
fuck is this? So no, it's definitely like that nightmare, right? So Saquon Barkley is nightmare fuel to any Giants fan at this point.
Oh man,
And
it's
yeah,
not only
their
that, I think
organization's
he's
on fire.
so I saw the stat the other day. Saquon has eclipsed his career high already
Yeah,
at this point in the season. That's unbelievable. He
yeah,
is. I think this is like a special season because I reminisce about like the Adrian Peterson days back in the
mm-hmm.
day. Like I loved watching Adrian Peterson. He was wicked. He had that one season with the Vikings that one year where he won MVP. But when
Yep,
Brett Favre was there, he was a huge piece of that. And they still show that run against the Pittsburgh Steelers where he just trucks a guy and runs over him.
yeah,
But those running backs are so awesome to watch, man. They're a massive part of football and why we watch the game. And
yeah,
you're seeing not only Saquon, but when we touch on the running backs this year, I want you to take a look at this shit, like the running backs and their impact this season. So the Giants let Saquon leave, and now he's on Philly, right? So now we have King Henry going to Baltimore, and then we have the Raiders getting Josh Jacobs. All three of those players on new teams are 1, 2, and 3,
mm-hmm.
respectfully, in yards. And that is remarkable to
Yeah,
see how when you just get a running back, and we talked about the nonsense of like, oh, you can replace the running backs, this and that. You cannot replace a fucking Saquon Barkley. You
mm-hmm.
cannot replace a Derrick Henry.
You
These
can't.
guys are as talented as ever. They deserve to be paid too, and they have a massive impact on the team just as much as a receiver or any other player does.
I would
And
say
you are seeing
bigger.
that.
Yeah,
Bigger. You are
bigger.
seeing it, man. There is no
Yep.
other player on the field. And you saw the clip where AJ Brown said on the sideline, he's like, you're the best player in this league. And
Yeah,
you are literally seeing that.
yeah,
And you have all these running backs right now, Saquon, King Henry fighting for like offensive player of the year. And I honestly think if Saquon continues at this pace, he deserves the MVP.
Yeah.
And I think this is the year where you got to give it to the running back and you start to shift that again to where it's not just a quarterback award, because this guy's taking over this league. And it's unbelievable to see, man. And I think the running backs deserve a little bit of love for sure.
Oh, they deserve it's we said it, and just to kind of rehash it, like your offense is so fundamentally built on your run game succeeding that if you don't have that run game at all, or even the ability to establish it, right, you cannot then establish the pass. And you can't just force passes all day long. Like we've seen that in different situations at the beginning of the season with Aaron Rodgers throwing 57, 58 times, and Breece Hall has 2 touches. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? Well, why did they lose that game? Because they didn't balance and establish the run. So it's such a big impactful. Now we're starting to see the Jets utilize Breece Hall in a way, and all of a sudden, the offense is just looking that little bit better and more, present. Now they're still losing games, sure, but they're at least putting up points. So this is the kind of discussion where you just need this in this scenario. Saquon's obviously there. It's an elite offense in Philly. We can't discard this team.
Scary.
They're scary. They're good. They're great. And again, we can run through the best teams in the league right now, and every single one of those teams has a massive running back talent. Every single one of them. And in one case, Detroit, which we would consider the scariest team, has 2.
Has 2 of them.
What are we doing? I honestly think the Detroit model is going to be what a lot of teams try to go for going forward. And it's kind of like that Steph Curry 3-point shot that changed the NBA. I think having those 2 backs in the backfield that are just both strong, well-equipped backs, you're seeing that running offense style really impact the game from the backfield. So some teams that have the quarterback and the rush, they're allowed to kind of utilize that offense in that way. And it's created that dynamic, what do we do on defense scenario? Saquon, Jalen, Lamar, Henry, right? Gibbs, Montgomery. These are just strong fucking backfields, and those are 3 of the best teams in the league. So how can you argue it, right? And then just to your point, even with Mixon going out, now Burrow's having to have an MVP type of season to make up for the fact that the run game isn't there. So it's a huge part of the game, and it's you have to pay for it.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. It's definitely not going anywhere. I think you're seeing that this year, and the NFL, it goes in cycles and this and that, and we got to a point where it's just like, we're going to pay the receivers because this is just going to be a throwing league, and we're just going to throw the ball. No, it's fucking not, man. The running game is always going to have its place. You're going to need to run the ball. You're going to need to have a balanced attack, and you're seeing why Cincinnati is struggling. Now, mind you, like Chase Brown's had a great year, but we're out there in shotgun throwing the ball on 3rd and 2 because we have no confidence in our run game whatsoever. And we can't run between the tackles. And that's the reason we can't control the game. And that's what pisses us off the most. And you look at these other teams, they have such balanced attacks and great running games, and they can control these games. And that's what happens. They get up, Philly controls the game, they run the ball, and look at that. Then you got guys on the defense. You can't just sit there and cover 2. You got to bring more guys into the box.
So front,
play action gets a lot better too. Like it just changes the game when you have a good running back, a good running attack, and you're seeing this like firsthand right now. So it's a beautiful thing.
Fucking Derrick Henry was hitting those power plays like fucking just 6.5, 7.5, 6.5, just play after play after play. What does the fucking team do? Oh, you have to come forward to the box.
You have to come
and
forward.
Then what do? Start dipping it to guys. So it's like, yo, fuck, what do you think? How do you think that happened? Other than that, they're going to play man. Yeah, it's like you have to. So it's
play action.
You have to
you
play
get
that
your
way.
big plays off that, and then you go from there. And I mean, we saw the 49ers do this. They went out, they got Christian McCaffrey, and look what happened to their offense
immediately
to the Super Bowl, right? Like that is the difference. So people need to the running backs need their flowers. You can't replace guys like Saquon and the Giants should be shunned for what they did. And we'll be talking about that the entire season because you let that guy walk out your doors. Now you're probably going to watch the Eagles fight for a championship this year. And God forbid he wins the MVP and the Eagles win a Super Bowl this year, man. That will go down in history as one of the worst moves ever.
Yeah. That tweet will come to fruition.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, absolutely. Maybe not David, but definitely show it.
But one little quick thing I want to add on here when I was talking about Adrian Peterson and his MVP season, let's take a look at the numbers through the first 11 games between both these guys. So Peterson, 1,236 rush yards. Saquon's at 1,392. Total touchdowns, Peterson had 7. Barkley has 12. Rush yards per game, Peterson had 112.4. Barkley's at 126.5. So he is on a historic pace right now. And if he keeps this up, no doubt he should be the MVP with the way that he's playing. So really cool. Really cool to see. And when we recap, I know we just went on a tirade there for the running backs.
Running back rant.
I mean, well-deserved
100%.
For sure. But let's take at some of these picks. Safe to say I shined a little bit in this game. Finally, needed to get myself back here.
Yeah, the start was not looking great, but
not
the
great.
end definitely worked out. So I had Rams on the cover. Definitely didn't happen there. That was I thought this game would mean a little bit more and just something would come of that, but they just got dominated. So
that's where we talked about like the Eagles being able to close out the games so well, and Saquon rips off those big runs. It was a fairly close game majority of the time, but it just got away from them.
Yeah,
right?
And then on you took the other side. You went Philly with the points.
In spite of you.
and look at that. Look at it paid out. Maybe we should do that more often. Each one that we lose, we should take the opposite of the other guys.
Just take the opposite. Just go with it.
And see how it goes. Probably pay out better. So we got on this plays though. These were all good takes. You had the anytime touchdown for AJ Brown that came through. Obviously, Devontae Smith was hurt, so you had to throw it to somebody. And what a play! I think it got called off originally, and then they put it back in play after the challenge. So that came through, and then you had Puka on the yards as well, and he came through with that big time. So. Good plays
that was a good
all around
for me for sure.
Yep. And I think that was our plays overall that we did.
That was a wrap.
We took any other on the props. So I think what it came down to, I was 25% on the on the game props, 63% on Stafford attempts. I was with Stafford on that one. And then 63% on the props. So that was a good prop bet week. That one obviously fell a couple shy with the guys with the rushing attempts or rushing yards, I should say. And then on the game props for the week, you went 43%, and then on the props you went 44%. So a little opportunity for both of us to be a little bit more successful here. But this was one of those games. Yeah. One of those weeks. But I think overall we're definitely climbing closer to that. And the goal is to get to 55-60% on average. I think coming into it, when we did the picks on the pod earlier, I was actually had been successful. I think it was 72%, and I think you were just over the 50% mark. So you just got to keep on those props. I think there's opportunities that we can identify.
Couple shitty injuries this week. Didn't exactly go the way we planned. And we kind of missed. We got to touch on this Ravens-Chargers game quick, but before we head out. But I had a play last night where it's like Lamar Jackson over rushing yards. That didn't hit. Of course it doesn't hit. The one time I take Lamar on the rushing total. But it looked like it was going to start great. Had McConkey right out the gate on the parlay. I don't know if you guys saw it on the story we posted. But sometimes it just doesn't go that way. Dobbins went out for Jeff on his parlay.
Yeah, that's
the injuries suck. Bit of an injury week here for us. But when you look at the Harbaugh Bowl from last night, the Ravens really kind of pulled away from that one, solidifying their spot, and now we get to drop the old Justin Herbert MVP chance because yes, the Chargers are a better team than we expected. Are they there yet? I don't think so.
One of the
but
weakest strengths of schedule in the entire
yes,
league.
a lot of room
So,
for improvement, but they got it some
yeah.
tougher games, so we get to see kind of how
But
they're
there's
going to
definitely a
fare. But
culture that's being built there, and you can feel it.
there
So
is, you can see it.
that's 100%. It's coming.
And we got to shout out your boy Quentin Johnson with the big old goose egg fantasy points wise.
How many drops, man?
Somebody had the yips last night, but
He did have the yips.
Herbert came out and he backed him up. Herbert's obviously a great leader for that team.
He is.
And it is what it is. Sometimes that happens. QJ's just unfortunately had a history of this. Last season, rookie season, was a little rough. He's been great, though, to start the year. That was just, it was a rough game for him.
It was one of those games, you know what it was as well? Like, there was, I don't know if you guys, like, you watched the game, but if you did watch the game, there was a lot of plays at the sideline where it was just close enough to the sideline where it was just, you see these guys like Puka make this play. So it's definitely the opportunity for Quentin Johnson to kind of figure this out. But there were a lot of tough catches to make. Some definitely went right in and out of his hands. But there was a lot of that opportunity right at the sideline where it was like having to make a little reach or a dive or a play. So the drops were kind of, I think, amplified by the actual play itself. But it didn't help any means when you're down at the end of the game there and you need a few catches and it doesn't come through. And I was one of those. I had completions for Herbert and it felt 21 on 21 and a half. So Quentin Johnson, buddy, you catch one of those balls for me. We were making money.
I had the yards on Herbert too. I think he finished with like just under the 225 mark that I needed. So
I had the attempts and the completions, and I thought I had a really good parlay. I had receiving for J.K. Dobbins. I had, and these were all, this was one parlay, but I did do the most straight Dobbins on the receptions and the receiving line. He hit that really quickly. And then I had Herbert and passing attempts and completions. I didn't like him on the yards, funny enough. So he just fell one shy, and they literally ran the ball in the last play, and I was like, fuck. And had to. So just had to be that. So
it's one of those weeks, guys. Sometimes you get them. It is what it is. That's sports. Not going to get them right all the time. But I think that's a wrap on the week 12 here. Pretty interesting week, to say the least. Appreciate you guys tuning into the show again. We'll be back at it. We got to run the slate. The games are coming out quick this week because we had American Thanksgiving. So we're going to get into some of those.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Hopefully we'll have those out to you before the games start Thursday morning. We'd like to release that pod, and then we'll have our picks. Try and give you a little bit more of a breakdown as to where we're getting our stats from and why we're taking some of these plays, so that you guys can chime in on kind of where we're getting our information. You can make some of the plays with us. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. It's the Chappy and Bengals show. We will see you guys next time.